Hi guys, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Yeti from Earth to Plates, and in today's video we're going to spend our time here in the kitchen and we're going to be cooking up and baking up some yummy stuff. Now, my goal in today's video is to do some projects that I've been pushing off or using up ingredients, which if you've seen I didn't post it yet, so I'm not sure where this one is going to be, but it's either the video before this or two before this one, where I went through my pantry and my freezers and I looked through and found ingredients that I want to use up in the next couple of months. Now, if you want to watch that video, I will link it for you. But today we are going to be making some gnocchi, which I have some mashed potatoes that I made a couple days ago, and I don't want it to go to waste. So we're going to transform that into gnocchi and put that into the freezer to enjoy it on a different night for dinner. I will be making hot chocolate cookies. So that's a fun project that we're going to do with some marshmallows that I have laying around the house and hot cocoa mix. So we're going to be using two ingredients that I found in my pantry. And we'll be making some granola bars, which we'll be trying for the first time. And if we get around to it, I will be making a vanilla tea cake as well. That's a bun cake. So my oven just finished preheating. It has reached temperature. I need it on a very low temperature for what we're going to start off with. So what we're going to do is we're going to dehydrate some marshmallows. Now, if any of you watching are not kosher, don't keep kosher, then you can find whatever I'm doing in the store. But I have not found a kosher version of it yet. So I do this myself. It doesn't take much effort. It just needs a little bit of time. So we're going to dehydrate some marshmallows is what we're going to do. Let's get going with dehydration, and then we're going to make the gnocchis. Okay, so I've got my marshmallows here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it out on this parchment lined cookie sheet. I'm going to get it as flat as possible, spread it out. This is going to go in a 170-degree oven for 1.5 hours. And if possible, we're going to take a wooden spoon and we're going to crack the oven door open a little bit to help dehydrate this faster. Okay, now that the marshmallows are in the oven, you can see I cracked it open with a wooden spoon over there. We're going to have it in there for 1.5 hours. Now, with my oven, from my past experience, 1.5 hours is perfect. One time I did it a little bit longer and it was way too dry. So I know that at the 1.5 hour mark, I'm going to take it out. Now, you with your oven, if you're making this at home, check it. At the 1.5 hour mark, start checking it every 20 minutes. Now, the way to check if it's ready is you're going to take out a couple of the pieces and you're going to bite into it or try to crush them. I'm looking at the recipe because I already know for myself. It says a fully dehydrated marshmallow will be crunchy throughout and have no gumminess in the center. So that's how you'll know if it's ready. So now that that's going, we have 1.5 hours, we're going to get going with the gnocchi. Okay, so for the gnocchis, I have a little bit over 2 pounds of potatoes here. So we're going to use this, and for that amount, I will need 2 eggs, some kosher salt, and some flour. Now I'm going to check, I'm going to do a quick Google search. If I am making this for the freezer, do I want to cook it before or when I am ready to use it? Okay, so for my quick research, I see here that it is best to freeze it fresh. So I'm going to get a cookie sheet out once I'm ready to shape it, and we're going to line it with a parchment paper. I'm going to flash freeze it. Once it's frozen, I will transfer it into a bag. That will help that the gnocchi shouldn't stick to itself. And it says that you can cook this from frozen without having to defrost it. So that is great. So we're going to get going with this. So I'm going to do this straight on the counter. And what we're going to do it's very watery, which is not good. So we're going to do sort of like pasta, which we're going to create a little circle here, but we're going to create a well in the center to crack our eggs into it. Oh, so it says to beat the eggs a little bit, but I can beat it in there. So we're going to crack the eggs. Should really crack it into something else. My hands are dirty now. Okay. Ooh, I should have added the flour, half of the flour before I did this. That's a problem. I'm going to try to scoop up the eggs and put it in here. So I'm going to start off with a half a cup of flour in here. And we're going to work this into the potatoes. And whenever you make pasta, it's good to use a bench scraper. Gnocchi is a form of pasta. Just instead of using flour, you're using potatoes. I mean, you're also using flour clearly, but we're using a lot of the potatoes, and that gives it like the extra fluffiness. I think at this point, it might be easier to do it with my hands. And you don't want to overwork this. So this looks like at this point the flour is fully incorporated. So we're going to create that well again. So now we can add that. Oh, I should have whisked it while I had it in the bowl here. I'm clearly not thinking through what I'm doing today. Just having fun here. Now we're going to add the salt. Top it with some more flour. And now I can add more if needed. And you want this to feel like a Play-Doh texture. That's when you know that it's good. You want it to hold its shape nicely. And this will need more flour, definitely. So I'm not going to add all of it at once. I'm going to add as necessary because too much flour can make it too stiff. I will allow myself to add more flour than the recipe calls for, just because I saw when I turned this out of the container that I had some liquid, and this mashed potatoes was made with some mayonnaise as well, so it definitely is more liquidy, more hydrated than if you were just gonna cook potatoes and mash it up and make this. You want to be able to roll it into a log and it should hold its shape. I think I'm just going to use the bench scraper now. So I'm going to get over the most I can. I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to try to incorporate the most possible with a bench scraper and see if it's easier to get it like that. I lost track of how much flour I've added at this point. But I am definitely over what the recipe has called for. But I'm going off of the texture. Definitely looks like we're getting there. See how it is holding up sort of like a dough ball at this point. Okay. So now, before we get to shaping this, I'm going to get a cookie sheet out and line it with parchment paper. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to get some flour on here. We're not going to work with the entire dough ball at one time. Okay, I cleaned it up a little bit, my bench scraper, so that it's a little bit easier to work with. I'm going to get it onto the floured surface here, and we're going to roll it into a log. And you want to have a nice coating of flour on here. Okay, we're going to cut these into about 1-inch pieces. And we're going to transfer these onto our cookie sheet. We don't want them touching, but we can get them pretty close because they're not going to expand or anything, do anything funny in the freezer. We just don't want them to stick together. Now, if you have any tools to create like a design or a texture on these, you can go ahead and do that. I don't, and I enjoy it like this. So this is how we're going to do it. Okay, once I got the hang of this, it's going really fast. And what I'm seeing now is that when you start rolling, you want to have the flour over the entire surface that you're rolling. But once the log is getting longer, you don't want the flour at the ends, because then it gets very hard to roll out those ends. Because it's already coated in flour and it wants to pick up more, and it doesn't have what to stick to. So you're just moving it back and forth instead of rolling it. So for the last one, we learn. Yeah, now it's rolling out really nicely. Okay, these are going to go into the freezer now. Now that that's put away, we're going to clean up the counter here, and we're going to see what we're going to get going on next. Our marshmallows have another 50 minutes to go. So we did this pretty fast. I thought it'll take longer. I love using this for cleanup because it's picking up anything that's sticky on the counter, especially because I'm cleaning it up right away. I'm also going to wipe this down before we get going with more things. Okay, so on here, I can mark off gnocchi. We've got that done. Let me check the granola bars and the cookies, what temperature and how long they need to bake. And I will read through the recipe before we get going on them, so that I know what I'm actually doing before I start. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the granola bars first. And once the marshmallows come out of the oven, we're going to make the cake, get that into the oven. And this needs to bake for an hour. So once this is in the oven, we'll make the cookie dough, put it in the fridge. And once this comes out of the oven, we'll be able to shape the cookies and get that into the fridge as well. That's our game plan. Okay, awesome. And we're going to move over to the stovetop to start off the granola bars. Okay, and I forgot to say I fed my sourdough starter here. We're going to be making some sourdough bread as well. So the recipe says to get out a cookie sheet first, and the size of the sheet that you're using will determine how thick your granola bars will end up being. And I guess mine will end up pretty thin because this is a very big cookie sheet. Okay, this has settled, so I'm going to have to mix it before we measure out the amount that we need. So we need a 3/4 cup of peanut butter, and we're going to put in 1/2 cup of honey in here. So this will be helpful for the honey and for the peanut butter. I'm going to spray this with oil, and it'll come out easier. So we'll do peanut butter first, since we're already doing this. I might have to spray it again before I do the honey. I think I will. Okay, we're gonna turn on the heat, and we're gonna mix this until it's all nice and smooth and melted. You want it to be easy to incorporate the rest of the ingredients into this. That looks good. It's nice and creamy. So we're going to turn off the heat. We're going to add in a little bit of vanilla and mix that in. And then we'll go back to the island. And in a bowl, we're going to combine the rest of the ingredients. And then we're going to top it with this peanut butter mixture. Combine it all together. And then get it onto our parchment paper lined cookie sheet. Okay, so in our bowl here, we're going to combine 2 cups rolled oats, 1 cup of rice cereal, 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed. I'm going to start off with 1 because it's the first time I'm making it, and I'm not sure how we're going to like it, but I'm thinking I will do 2, and if we don't like it as much, next time I'll do less, but flaxseed is good for us. So we're going to combine this So now we're going to get the peanut butter mixture over top of this. Okay, now we're going to combine all of this together. Now we're going to add in 2/3 cup of chocolate chips. Now this is a mixture of mini ones and real and flavored and all different types of chocolates. We're going to combine this. It would be helpful to use a bigger spatula. Okay, now that this is fully incorporated, we're going to get this onto our cookie sheet. You can definitely do this in a 9x13. You don't need a cookie sheet for this, unless if you want it really thin. Okay, now we're going to get a bit more chocolate chips. I'm going to sprinkle this over top. Try to spread it out a bit more evenly and press it a little bit into this granola, and then we'll get it into the fridge and let it set up. Two things I want to tell you guys. First of all, this is something that my family has been loving and they are already requesting that I make it again. And the second thing is that next time I make it, I would add all of the chocolate chips into the bar and not add some on top, because those that were on top, they were just falling over. They didn't have what to stick to, and I would rather have it all inside. Okay, so now we're going to get going on the vanilla tea cake. So I have here a cup. I'm going to get 4 chamomile tea bags in here. I'm waiting for my water to come up to a boil. We're going to add in here 1 cup of hot water, and we're going to let this sit for 5 minutes to steep. And while this is steeping, I'll get out my mixer and we'll get going with the batter. And my water has reached temperature. And our marshmallows have another 18 minutes. So I think I'm actually going to wait. I'm going to let this steep for longer, because I don't want to have to wait too long when the batter is done to getting this into the oven. So we're going to get 1 cup of hot water in here. Oh, this tea already smells good. So we're back. Now the tea has steeped. It's been sitting on the counter. It's been a little while. I was getting hungry. I stopped for a lunch break. The marshmallows have come out of the oven. They are dehydrated. Can't even crack them. But it's like nice and dry throughout. So we're going to get going with our cake first. I'm going to turn on my oven to 350. And in here we're going to get some eggs and sugar beating. So we're going to get going with our eggs first. I have 6 eggs here. We're going to crack and get it into our mixer bowl, where you guys can see. Okay, now we're going to get 2.5 cups of sugar. And now we're going to beat this until it's very pale yellow, almost whitish. Before we turn that on, we're going to get on our splash guard. Now while it's mixing, you slowly add in the rest of the ingredients. And I was talking to you guys while the machine was going, and unfortunately it's too hard to hear what I'm saying. So I'm going to tell you right now what we're doing. We're just going to add the ingredients. You don't have to pre-mix the dry ingredients in a separate bowl. So I'm just putting in 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 package of instant vanilla pudding, 3.25 ounces of vanilla pudding, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, a 3/4 cup of oil, 1 tablespoon of pure vanilla extract, 3 cups of flour, and then you're also going to add in the 1 cup of the steeped tea that we made earlier. So now I have here my bun pan that I have sprayed liberally. We're going to pour the batter into the pan and get this into the oven. Let's do this. Batter into the cake pan. Okay, now this will bake on 350 for 1 hour. And at that point, we'll check it and make sure that it is baked through. And now that the cake is in the oven, we can get going with our cookies. And we're going to start off with 2 sticks of butter, or 1 cup. And it's softened, so this has been out for quite a few hours now. It's really nice and soft. In here, we're going to add 1 cup of sugar and 2/3 cup of brown sugar. Now we're going to mix this until it's light and fluffy. Once this is nice and fluffy, and while the machine is still mixing, we're going to add in 2 eggs and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now it says the next few things to add in a separate bowl. I'm going to add it in here and lightly combine it before turning on the machine. We're going to do 3 1/4 cup of flour, a 3/4 cup of hot cocoa mix, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosely mix it in here like this, instead of having to dirty up another bowl. And now we can combine this together. Now that it's just combined, we're going to add 1 cup of chocolate chips. And we're going to add in 1 cup of our dehydrated marshmallows. And we're going to combine this until it's just incorporated. It's getting up onto the beater, so I might have to do this by hand. And by hand, I mean with a spatula, not with a beater. The reason why you want to use dehydrated marshmallows and not the regular is because regular marshmallows will dissolve and disintegrate in the heat of the oven in order to get the cookies baked enough to be able to enjoy it. So I'm going to cover up this bowl and set it in the fridge for a half an hour, or until our cake is done, and then we'll get this baking. Okay, it's been an hour. The cake, when I inserted a toothpick, it came out dry. What we're going to do is we're going to flip this, and we're going to let this rest for 10 minutes before we're going to try to take this out. Okay, so I got the mixer out of the fridge, and we're just going to scoop and lay it down on here. Let me actually check now how long we have to bake it for. So this will need to bake on 350 for 9 to 11 minutes. This is going to go into the oven now. Now before we get to shaping some more, we're going to get this out. It's been sitting for 10 minutes now, and that helps loosen it out. Oh, beautiful. Came right out perfectly. Awesome. We're going to move this aside and let it cool completely. And I'm going to get out a parchment paper, and we're going to scoop up the rest of the cookie dough so that when the trays come out of the oven, we can just go ahead and transfer some new cookies and bake these up. And that will give me time to also do the dishes. Okay, now that we have this ready to go, we're going to get out some cooling racks. Now I'll show you guys a little bit more what the kitchen looks like. We're going to get some dishes going. Now this, I have to season, so it's been floating around the kitchen. Maybe I'll do this afterwards. So like I said, while the cookies are baking, I washed the dishes. I actually got both sinks clean. All of the dishes completed in this time. I also needed the 3rd cooling rack for the last batch of cookies. So I transferred the cake onto a cake tray. And like that, I had the 3rd tray available for use. And When the cookies came out of the oven, I actually allowed them to sit on the cookie sheet for another 2 minutes before I transferred them off. That was so that the cookies can continue cooking, but also start cooling off. And doing this helps prevent the cookies from crumbling or falling apart as you transfer them. Okay, now our granola is pretty set. Pulled it out of the fridge, we're going to cut this up. Okay, I'm going to cut this. Let's see. We're going to store this in an airtight container. And this can go either in the fridge or on the counter. Let's taste this. I love it. Creamy, a little bit sweet, the honey. I don't taste the flaxseed, so I'm happy I put in the full amount. The crunch of the rice cereal is delicious. This is awesome. I'm happy that I made this, and I hope that my family will enjoy it as much as I do. Hey guys, so we are back. The cake has cooled. Our cookies have cooled, and I transferred them into a container. And we're going to top this with some confectionery sugar. This is how I like to do it, with a little sieve. And I wanted to thank you guys for taking time out of your day and watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope to see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, I'll pop some more on the screen for you. And consider hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified when I upload another one.